Vampires. Some fear them, some want to be them, most just want to date them. These sexy mosquitoes have pretty much always had cultural relevance ever since their modern inception in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but with the recent box office successes of movies like Sinners and Nosferatu, I think it's very likely that we're going to be seeing a lot more vampires on our screens pretty soon. And because I had so much fun doing my zombie adaptations video, I thought I would come back around and do a part 2. Hello, by the way, my name is Jessie, and on this channel I talk about screenwriting, media, and entertainment, so if any of that is of interest to you, be sure to hit that subscribe button and stick around. Today I have 6 ideas for vampire adaptations that I would personally love to see as studios hop on the vampire gravy train that is currently rolling into the station. So let's just dive in, or should I say, sink our teeth in. Number 1 is Lady Dimitrescu from Resi 8, which means that Resident Evil is currently 2 for 2 with these adaptation videos, so props to them for that. Now, right off the bat, I know that Lady D is technically not a vampire, she's some moldy abomination, but she has vampire vibes. You know, she drinks blood, she lives in an opulent mansion, and she's pale, so I'm counting her. Now, this idea seems like a total no-brainer to me. Every Resident Evil fan loves Lady Dimitrescu in an exclusively pervy way, which, no judgment, we all have our things. I'm just saying, people would very much be willing to spend money to see this diva in a movie. Real quick for the uninitiated, Alcina Dimitrescu is one of the villains of Resident Evil 8. She's essentially like a failed experiment of the main villain, and so she has all of these like weird abilities, like she has retractable Wolverine claws, she's 10 feet tall, and she exclusively drinks blood to survive. You can see why people thirst for her. So, like, no spoilers, but based on the events of the game, this is gonna have to be an origin story. Positives, this lady has had a very interesting life, so there's plenty of material to work with. Did you know she was in a jazz band in her pre-mold era? Wild. The negative is that in her pre-mold era, she wasn't a 10-foot tall vampire mommy, which is kind of the whole point. I think a good compromise would be to start the movie in the Jazz Age, and then by the end of Act 1, she's moving back to her family estate in Transylvania and is joining Miranda's cult. That way she'll be at least 7 feet tall by the midpoint, and then it's only up from there. So in addition to seeing her transformation into her final form, I also think it'd be really interesting to see how her 3 daughters came into existence, but not like that, they're also mold babies. But yeah, then we could end the movie right around where the game begins with Lady D receiving her baby flask from Miranda. Don't ask, it's even weirder in context. I really think this movie would slap, and I also think that the merch would slap even harder. I'm picturing like a custom wine tie-in, and then like wristbands that have retractable Wolverine claws, and then popcorn buckets that are shaped like her big hat. Number 2 is Coffee Talk. This one might be a bit of a deep cut, so stick with me. Coffee Talk is a visual novel where you play as a barista in an alternate universe Seattle where monsters and humans exist together. You basically just serve customers and then they tell you their stories, which you can influence based on the drinks that you serve them. It's an amazing game, and if you are into visual novels, I would highly recommend it. Honestly, I would watch a like Love Actually style movie adaptation of the entire game, but this video is about vampires, so let's get into the vampire of it all. Allow me to introduce Hyde. He's a vegan vampire who works as a model in LA, and he's in town visiting his werewolf friend Gala. At least, that's the official story. You see, this game was developed by an indie studio in Indonesia, a country not super well known for their gay rights, so the only official canon couple is Lua and Bailey's, who are a straight couple. But if you play the game, you might notice that there's a bit of a vibe between Hyde and Gala. There's a lot of flirtatious teasing and past reminiscing and whatever this is.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
It's like he's trying to speak to me, I know it!
I just love their dynamic, and I would love to see their relationship in its final form. The game takes place entirely in the coffee shop, and so my vision for a movie would be to see Hyde and Gala's story play out from their perspective and see what they get up to when they're not in coffee talk. So Hyde would roll into town and reach out to his friend and former bodyguard, Gala. He says he's just in town for work, but actually he's having like a little bit of an existential crisis and feeling like his life in LA is unfulfilling. You see, since he's a vampire who will theoretically live forever, he tends to struggle with these like big existential questions like the meaning of life and his purpose and his connection to those around him. So he's come back to Seattle to kind of like reconnect with his past and just ground himself. He and Gala start reminiscing about how they met and all the wild times they had back in the day, and that reminiscing turns into a realization that maybe their friendship is something more, and maybe it's time to just stop fighting it. And maybe, just maybe, the meaning that was evading Hyde was right here all along. Aw. Number 3, my mouth wants to say Astarion, but I know that's wrong, so I won't. It's Astarion from Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I'm gonna pretend to hold your hand as I say this. You and I both know exactly what this adaptation needs to be, and if you don't, then you're in for a wild ride. Either way, just stick with me on this journey, and don't be a coward. So, Astarion is a vampiric elf who was formerly enslaved by his sire before joining your party in the game. He's definitely one of the more popular romanceable characters in the game, I think because he's very charismatic and flirty while also still having a deep and complex backstory.
My honor, the only thing on my mind is depraved carnal lust.
And I mean, who doesn't love a story where someone starts out intending to use the dentist system on you and then accidentally falls in love with you because you're just that amazing? Basically, what I'm saying is, and I'm going to pretend to hold your hand again as I say this adaptation needs to be a romance. But not just any romance. It needs to be a 50 Shades of Grey esque alternate universe fan fiction adaptation. Remember, don't be a coward. Let me explain why. Astarion, as a complete package, cannot really be replicated in another medium. His character design and Neil Newbon's performance as his voice actor are just too iconic and quintessential to his characterization.
On your knees, darling.
So, doing a like file the serial numbers off fanfiction adaptation actually helps the project by taking the focus away from doing a faithful one-to-one adaptation of Astarion and just lets us enjoy the vibe and the story. And y'all already know that I have a story suggestion, but what you don't know is that I have two story suggestions. So my like standard milquetoast adaptation pitch is going to be set on a college campus in the present day, real world, and everyone's human. YN, or Tav in this case, hooks up with Astarion at a house party intending for it to be a one time thing, only to find that they are seated at the same table in their science lab the next semester. This essentially means that they are stuck in a semesters long group project together with other Baldur's Gate 3 characters making up the rest of their lab group. Astarion intends to further seduce Tav in order to get them to do his work for him, but of course ends up falling for them instead. Over the course of the story, we'd learn that Astarion grew up as the child of a con man, so he was essentially raised as a con man's apprentice. And he was fully participating in his parents' schemes until recently when they got caught and sent to jail. Astarion enrolled in college as a way to like finally separate himself from his parent, but his con man ways still linger, his favorite method of course being seduction. By the end of the semester, Astarion grows to trust Tav and they enter into like a real relationship, whatever that means, and they get an A on their science lab. And now for the nuclear option, by which I mean the prohibitively expensive option. So, Baldur's Gate is actually just video game Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons is high fantasy. And what is the opposite of high fantasy? That's right, it's sci fi, which is why we're going cyberpunk. So, in this version, Astarion is back to being a vampire. I haven't really figured out why there's a vampire in a cyberpunk universe, but I'm not really that worried about it. You know, every modern romance movie needs an unhinged element to bait commentary YouTubers into making hour-long video essays about them. And then, 2 years later, I'll make a video that's like, I fixed the cyberpunk Astarion movie, and the cycle will be complete. Anyway, Astarion is a vampire in the cyberpunk universe. He meets Tav and the rest of the Baldur's Gate characters during a research study where this company is experimenting with brain chips that connect you to all of the known knowledge in the universe. But the experiment goes wrong and ends up connecting all of the participants into this sort of hive mind, while also threatening to kill them if the chip goes critical. Our party members are left for dead when the company's investors pull out, and they have to work together to figure out how to get the chips out themselves. Throughout this journey, Astarion will fall in love with Tav, and we'll learn a little bit about his backstory working in a strip club. His, thing was that he was a neutered vampire with a Spike-esque chip in his brain, so people could enjoy the excitement of being with a vampire without actually being in danger. And the reason he entered the research study in the first place was to get that first Spike chip out of his brain, but now that it is, his hunger is out of control. Tav, of course, lets Astarion feed on them, and that is the start of their blossoming relationship. And those are my two Astarion stories. Let me know which one is your favorite in the comments down below. Number 4, I just gave him a little shout out. It's our boy, the one, the only, Spike. We don't talk enough about how hilarious his name is. Like, okay, Lily Blossom Bloom. I don't actually know if I've mentioned this on the channel before, but I am a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. Which is to say that I am an unhinged Buffy fan because cool, chill Buffy fans do not exist. But real quick, let me bring the non-freaks up to speed. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a TV show that aired in the late 90s, early 2000s about, you guessed it, a girl named Buffy who is a vampire slayer. The whole show is a coming of age allegory that juxtaposes the irreverence and simplicity of Buffy's normal life with the darkness and weight of her Slayer life as she struggles to balance the two. Spike was introduced in season 2 as the main villain. The showrunner, Joss Whedon, had every intention of killing Spike off at the end of the season, but audiences quickly fell in love with his hollow cheekbones, bleached Justin Timberlake hair, and fake British accent, saving Spike from certain doom, because not only did he not die, but he became a series regular. Now, without getting too far into the weeds, I would like to acknowledge that while Spike was saved, his actor, James Marsters, was certainly not saved from the wrath of Joss Whedon, certified terrible person. Whedon really resented that his original vision for Spike was scrapped, and he apparently took it out on Marsters, who recounted a time where Whedon shoved him against a wall and yelled at him, "You're dead."
And he's in my face. He goes, I don't care how popular you are, kid. You are dead. You are dead. You are dead. You got me?
Men Go to Therapy challenge, difficulty impossible. I say all that to say, Spike's redeemed villain narrative that was attempted throughout the series is undoubtedly tainted by Whedon's unwillingness to change his original characterization and his insistence that Spike always be unchangeably evil to his core. All of this mess left the People's Vampire with a somewhat unsatisfying ending, and I think he deserves another go-around without Whedon's involvement. Now, I will admit that this idea is incredibly fraught for many reasons, but a couple of which are James Marsters has aged out of the role, not calling him old, just saying he's a vampire who isn't supposed to age. And like Astarion, I don't really see anyone else being able to play Spike. And there's also limited room to expand on his story. Spike's backstory has already been extensively covered by the show, and you couldn't really do a post-show sequel for, reasons? So to make this work, you've got to get a little creative with the existing material. And lucky for us, I'm a very creative person, and I have 2 pitches for you once again. Option 1 is a Midnight Sun book adaptation where we see the events of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from Spike's perspective. Not only would this be incredibly interesting lore building for the fans, but it's also way easier to execute than a movie or a TV show. You don't need to worry about actors or set recreations or any of that. All you need is a good writer slash Buffy scholar, and you can tell a really interesting story that still feels true to the show and the characters. There's actually a whole series of graphic novels that I think are non-canon, but you could totally go that route and make it a graphic novel series. And we'll call it William the Bloody, or maybe just Spike the Vampire. That'll really sell. Option number 2, not mutually exclusive, is a musical. As I said in my zombie video, the musical is the perfect conduit for the camp mixed with the serious. And what did I just say about Buffy? It's both irreverent and deeply serious at the same time. Textbook musical material. This would also solve the casting problem because stage casting is way more lenient than screen acting, partially because you have a greater suspension of disbelief, but also the actors are just way physically further away from the audience. In terms of content, I really like the idea of doing a full length version of the musical episode where there's a monster in town and he is the one that's making everyone sing and all of the music is diegetic. But it is a really confusing place to drop in if you've never seen Buffy before. So I do think it would be better to just do a straightforward retelling of like the first 2 or 3 seasons smashed together. That way you get properly introduced to the world and the characters, and you get to see the complete Buffy and Angel arc with Spike being the camp musical theater villain.
Leave me be and let me rest in peace.
Angel isn't my favorite, and I don't think he's most people's favorite, but he and Buffy are kind of the poster relationship for this series, and it is a good, well-rounded story for a musical. And the trend of adapting things into musicals is still going strong, so I do think it would be a crime to not make this happen. Number 5, Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo. Yes, I am serious. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, this is a pop song about Olivia Rodrigo feeling taken advantage of in the entertainment industry. Olivia sings to the person who took advantage of her, referring to them as a blood-sucking, fame-fucking vampire. Now, many people have speculated that this song is about Taylor Swift, but we will not be doing a Taylor Swift adaptation today because, number 1, I've already done a Taylor Swift adaptation on this channel, and number 2, we can't be out here implying that T Swift is a vampire because she will sue you if you step on her lawn. Instead, I want to take the vampire in the song and make them a literal vampire. I'm picturing a TV show kind of like Lucifer, where the main character is an anti hero, no pun intended. She's a prolific pop star and also a vampire who feeds on up and coming artists in exchange for her industry connections and mentorship. The story begins when a music journalist who is profiling the star accidentally finds out that she's a vampire and gets sucked into her inner circle because, well, now they know too much. The vampire totally would have just killed the journalist, but in the short time that they had been following her for their profile, she grew to like them, so she's giving them a shot, but if they make one mistake, they're dead. Or I guess, they're dead. Throughout the series, the two would bond, and they would influence each other in their growth as people. The vampire would also shift to more of a Dexter operation, where she feeds on bad actors in the music industry instead of poor little innocent Olivia Rodrigo's. And since no TV show is complete without sexual tension, I do think it would be very funny if the journalist fell in love with the vampire's familiar, who is also her personal assistant. The theme song would, of course, be the Olivia Rodrigo song, but in order to avoid fan drama, you would have to pretend that you're just using the song because it's called Vampire and not because it's directly inspired. So this is actually a secret adaptation, so don't tell anyone. And last but not least, number 6, The Count from Sesame Street. This one is certainly not getting funded anytime soon, but let's just pretend for a minute, shall we? The Count, whose actual name is Count Von Count, is a character on Sesame Street. He's a spoof of Count Dracula, but instead of sucking blood, his thing is mainly that he just likes to count things and laugh in Eastern European. Uh-oh. You know, in the age of declining performance among students, this really is the perfect time to give the Count his full feature length film where he embarks on a quest to find the biggest number. You see, the Count loves to count, but he's grown tired of the usual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 routine. And he set his sights on something bigger. So he gathers a few of his friends and they travel around the world looking for the biggest number that he can count to. Now, they do encounter a lot of numbers that they've never heard of before, like un, deux, trois, or uno, dos, tres, or even eins, zwei, drei. But these numbers actually aren't any bigger than numbers that he knows, so he's not satisfied. But just as he's about to throw in the towel, he meets a mathematician who informs him that there isn't actually a biggest number, that numbers go on for infinity. And the Count is super excited by this because that theoretically means he could count forever. And now he has a bunch of new numbers in his repertoire. And that is all the vampire adaptations I have for you today. I am so ready for the vampire renaissance. They truly are the superior monsters. I mean, who doesn't want to imagine themselves as a sexy, immortal being who can compel people to get whatever they want and is essentially exempt from everyday problems? Plus, the aesthetic really slaps. But what do you think? Would you watch any of these adaptations? What vampires would you add to the list? Leave me a comment down below. And of course, don't forget to like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more from me. I actually hit 100 subscribers with my last upload, which was super cool. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for watching all the way to the end. I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!